We do the presentation then.
Sure.
Oh, you want me to start?
Sure.
Oh, okay, I guess that's true. Well, welcome to our second webinar in our series for OER. It's about adopting and implementing open educational resources. And Darren and I are co-facilitating today. So we're glad that you're here. Yay. And we're glad that maybe you're watching this online now or later. And so for all of you that are here in the room with us, what is your name and what subject do you teach? And what do you hope to get out of this?
I'm Lisa. I teach business. What do I hope? I hope to adopt and implement.
Okay.
Well, you're in the right place.
We hope to fulfill that hope. Or should we introduce ourselves?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Briefly. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm Sarah Bosler, Public Services Librarian, and also one of the ZTC grant coordinators. And so Darren, Elizabeth, and I are all teaming up on helping facilitate creating ZTC degrees.
Yeah, so Darren Hall, also one of the tri coordinators, and Systems and Technical Services Librarian.
And our main goals today and our objectives are basically just to understand the Citrus College procedure for adoption. How do new books get adopted? And then also learning different ways to distribute that information, the OERs, to your students, because there are lots of different ways to do that. That's kind of our main goal. And then we are kind of making a few assumptions today that you have already possibly found an OER that you want to use, and I know that you may have found one or more to implement, and so that you already identified those, and that you're just ready to kind of go into the next steps. What's going to be happening next? And then there are lots of different, we're kind of focusing on sort of an off-the-shelf solution where you found something that you don't necessarily want to change and remix, that you're really just getting something and adopting it and implementing it. We will have some follow-up workshops in terms of finding something and wanting to remix it or change it and add different parts. So that's something that we will get out later on April 9th. But for now, we're just sort of looking at an off-the-shelf type of approach. And then I just kind of want to go over some of the general adoption processes that we have at Citrus College. And there are kind of some general state requirements that are involved. Some of those include common questions that I get from faculty who are interested in transitioning a course. A lot of people are worried about whether this is going to affect the transferability of the course. Is there certain textbooks that are required to transfer that the universities accept and that they commonly use? And choosing an OER does not affect transferability. So that is not something that we have to worry about in this case. There is maybe sort of a guideline in terms of how old a document is. Like usually they try to have adoptions that are not any older than 5 years in terms of that kind of transferability, but just the nature of an OER itself is not an issue with that. And then the course of record, the COR requires that there is a representative text that meets the course standards. So as long as it's meeting what the objectives are for the course, it doesn't matter what you use for it, as long as it's something that can support the objectives and the outline of the course. And then also, you don't have to have OER on the course of record, although that is something that's preferred on campus. So there's a lot of teachers that are using OER and have been for many years, and they are not listed on the course record, but that's kind of something that we'd like to try to encourage. And then in terms of some other state requirements, there is a Senate Bill 1359, which is introduced a few years ago, where each college, UC or Cal State, has to actually mark zero textbook cost on any sections that are in the live schedule that are low cost material or zero cost material. So that is something that legally we have to mark. And so that's why we try to do that as best as possible. Right now, that's really a manual process. And so we were able to export some reports from Argos and Banner and try to verify that information and correct that information with the folks that are adding that on the schedule. But right now that's a manual process. So there's an added requirement that we have that has been put into place a year or so ago. And we have to meet it by June 2024, that every section, even if it's not zero textbook cost, is actually tagged with data sort of on the back end of the reporting. It's called the XB12 data element, and each section has to be marked. There's 5 different kind of codes for how to mark a class, anywhere from this course does not require any materials at all, to that it has zero text, or it's resources that are used that are paid for by the college that are not, the cost is not passed down to the students. So there's several different things that we're also working on getting tagged sort of on the non-public end of that. All of these are done manually. It's kind of a painstaking process, but we want to do it for the benefit of the student, so the student can actually see when they're choosing classes, which ones are zero textbook cost. The students a few years ago, or a couple years ago, maybe voted on a low cost option. And so the students had decided that they want $30 to be the low cost marker. And so that is an additional process that we haven't put in place now of marking the ones that are actually the total of the books required are going to be low cost. So we're moving toward that. And then in general, the college, has an AP 4030 that is moving toward cost reduction efforts in general. So the use of OER is encouraged and supported in terms of student success. And that is also reflecting the Textbook Affordability Act of 2015. So right now, the OER is, like I said, can be on the core, but it's not required. It's preferred. And that's really helpful because when the faculty go through the process of adding a book to the course of record, it notifies all of the faculty in that area who have accounts in CourseLeaf, which is where we do the curriculum. And adjuncts can also participate in that process in terms of just kind of prompting a change if they're adding something. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But the main benefit of putting it in there is that everyone else can see that it's an option that's being used by somebody else. And also it just kind of promotes that awareness for new people who are assigned a course that they don't know what book to use, and they see that as a free option, and that they know right away that I can use that on the first day of class. Any questions? Okay. So there's a couple different really short sort of adoption procedures that I wanted to outline. One of them is for full-time faculty and one's for part-time. They're just really slightly different in terms of access to CourseLeaf. But if you find a book that you want to use and you have identified that and you want to add it to the course of record, then you can launch the workflow. So for full-time faculty, they actually have accounts in CourseLeaf, which is our curriculum management system, and they can launch that into the workflows, what they call it, and then they can add a new OER as what they call a textbook modification. And so that kind of puts it into the workflow. It goes to the tech review where there's a team of people that look at all of the different features and the change that's being made. And then the division dean and all the faculty with CourseLeaf accounts are notified of that modification. So I did check to see if there's actually dean approval per se for it. And my understanding is that there is not approval. They are just notified of that change. And the full-time faculty, I think, are making that call and adding that as an option that's being used. And then the only difference with part-time faculty is that if you don't have an account in CourseLeaf to launch the course, then you can request an account through Shelby Amador is the one that you can request an account. She can give you an account and then you can launch the course, and then it goes into tech review and everyone will be notified. But you have to what do they call it? You have to have a co-contributor. So getting an account would be a separate step. And then the step 3 here is identifying a full-time faculty to be a co-contributor. So you sort of are doing it as a team with a full-timer. So that's the only difference with that. Yes.
What is Shelby Amador's position?
She works in the academic affairs office, and I don't know what her
Is
title.
it Shelby?
Shelby.
Shelby's our curriculum specialist, our curriculum person.
Specialist.
And she's the new Darla.
Yeah.
the new, Sabrina.
Yeah, new Darla, new Sabrina possibly is that some folks who might have some context. So
Right,
yeah, she's new, so that name might not be familiar yet with you, but you will become-
hence the question.
yes. Yeah, you will know her very well. So yeah, those are the two differences with that process. And then the communication, I think, in these processes is really key. That you have, that you're, not only communicating with the faculty on that, but that you notify the admin secretary when that is approved through curriculum. And so they're the ones, well, and these processes may change over time. But they are the one that is coordinating with the bookstore right now to send that information to the bookstore so they can put that on their website. But recently I have learned that there is a new process that the bookstore is putting into place. It's a tool that faculty that are teaching in the summer are starting to use. And that is something that allows the faculty themselves to actually communicate that information to the bookstore directly. So I have a little video about what that is like. It's actually called Follett Discover. So yeah, and we'll look at that in a moment.
Right.
Yeah, so this is kind of the main bookstore process where the bookstore is recommending to faculty to use this Follett Discover tool to collect adoption information. If the faculty member right now doesn't want to use the tool or isn't ready to use the tool, that the admin secretary can sort of possibly play a role to help that happen and to put that in for them. The bookstore is also accepting email from faculty, so you can email them directly and they will put it in for you as well. That might even be easier than contacting the admin secretary, just to not have two people have to do it. But Amanda Clark is the course materials manager in the bookstore, and her email is here on the screen, the ar.clark@follett.com. And she is able to submit that information for the Follett Discover tool. And then that actually integrates with Canvas, and it makes it really easy for instructors to actually even discover other textbooks that you maybe didn't even know about. It also has OER in their catalog that you can search and choose from to add as your book that you're adopting. So obviously, if it's a new thing that you discover that you tell the bookstore about, you also might want to eventually double back and put it in the course of record, if you're kind of doing that in a different order. But obviously, putting it in the course of record first would be good. And so when students students may want to purchase a print copy of this. So they have a process where you can send them a PDF, Amanda in the bookstore, and they have a copyright form that they'll have you complete and make sure that it's something that's able to be printed. And then they can also sell a printed copy to the student if that's an optional version of their OER if they want that. And then training on how to use that tool is forthcoming, but it looks like they've provided some introductory training information for the summer faculty who are doing their adoptions right now, summer 2020. And then I have a short little video just to kind of show you what that looks like. The Follett Discover. I guess it's not adopt, it's just Follett Discover.
Follett Discover Adopt is a tool that helps faculty search and discover materials for their courses. Because of our integrations with your Canvas, once an instructor logs into Discover from the learning management system, it recognizes who they are and personalizes the page by populating the courses they are teaching for the upcoming term. When looking to discover content within the Follett Discover tool, instructors can use the global search box located at the top right-hand corner of the screen to do a more targeted search by entering a keyword, ISBN, author, or title. But if they prefer to search a particular subject, they can simply enter a subject in the Discover search tool to yield a broader set of results. The Follett Discover search results page provides results separated by publisher materials, supplies, and open educational resources, allowing for the consumption of this information in multiple ways. View the results on each of these tabs, or filter the results more by using the various filter or sort options. Open educational resource content can be found under a separate tab after the Supplies tab at the top, which can be filtered by provider and keyword to narrow down the results shown even further. One key feature to note is by viewing the details page for OER content, instructors can review the material by clicking the Access Material link. A great feature for those instructors who are sensitive to the cost of materials, each search result shows a variety of affordable options, including whether a title is part of our rental library, what the starting price is, and if the title is available in a digital format, which is most often the most inexpensive. And by clicking the View Details button, an instructor can view more information about the title. Another key feature of the course materials detail page is the ability to see the price breakout by format, so an instructor can see what a student will be paying for the content. The course materials detail page shows the author, title, and ISBN, as well as a short description. A table of contents link is available to show how the text is organized and the topics that are covered. A bonus feature is that instructors can also view a digital desk copy for the material, so no more waiting for a print copy to arrive in the mail. Moving down the page, an instructor can see recommendations of other titles to review, allowing for instructors to discover additional material options to shape the curriculum. And instructors can also leave behind a rating or review of the title, which becomes valuable to others who are considering adopting the book. The power of the Follett Discover tool doesn't end with the adoption of materials that are readily available. Instructors also have the flexibility to add a link or upload their own content for students to access by using the Add My Content feature. If an instructor wants to further round out their course, they can also blend together a mix of articles, PowerPoints, curated library content, and more to create customized course materials for students by using our Create Content feature. And finally, the Follett Discover tool allows instructors to easily adopt materials to their Follett Discover library. This library houses all adoptions, including all previous adoptions, and instructors can continue to build a repository of materials by also adding any materials into their library. Within the library, instructors can create shelves to keep their materials organized by course, program, or any other type of categorization, and share those shelves with anyone. These powerful features make Follett Discover the leading go-to solution for instructors and your campus course materials needs.
So, kind of exciting. I'm hoping that that will make some people's lives a little easier. And I like that it does incorporate OER options into it. And my understanding is that it's in Canvas. So I don't know if it's just for the teachers right now that are using it in the summer, but I'm gonna try to get a look and see like, what does it look like from the Citrus College faculty perspective. I don't have access to that quite yet, but hopefully everybody will learn more about that as more people are using it. Yeah. Any questions about?
Okay, so we've gone through already the portion about for the administrative side of things, what do you need to do to make sure that the course is kind of recognized by various different systems so that students know when they're signing up for courses, registering for courses. Hey, I can get a ZTC course. I'd rather take that class than the other one. This section of the presentation we'll talk about now. How do we go about then distributing that textbook, that OER resource to your students? So a dissemination sort of strategy, if you will. And of course, for the most part, that's going to take place through Canvas, right? So you can, for example, imagine that when you have your syllabus posted in Canvas, and you would normally be listing your textbook, that you can provide a link within the syllabus directly to that textbook. The more detailed or kind of full-featured, if you will, option is to embed all of the content directly into your Canvas site through what's called a course cartridge. And in a minute, we're going to go through exactly how that's done. But I think that's kind of maybe one of the most exciting possibilities. Because it just means that the students then have all of that content right there in their Canvas shell. There isn't a need to switch back and forth from other websites. The URLs, of course, that you're providing, say in your syllabus, you might, and on the top line, linking to the full text, but in other contexts, you may want to provide deep links to just specific portions of the text, right? So this week we are reading about, this chapter, and the texts almost invariably have those sort of deep link options you can grab from the address bar. And then, as Sarah had mentioned previously, being able to provide a PDF for the students is also excellent opportunity, particularly for those who want to have a printed version available, either that they get through the bookstore, and they can use their financial aid to pay for that, or if they have some other means, or just want to print it on their own in some way. Finally, of course, because the OER are, freely available to distribute, you can go ahead and distribute it to them before class, get them so that, again, we know that one of the main benefits of having the OER is that they've got access on day one. We're not waiting for students to go to a bookstore, find out the book might not be in stock, wait a couple of weeks, everything kind of delays really getting the class started. But now you can actually even be kind of front loading and saying, welcome everybody, here we go. Next week, we'll be seeing you, and here's a link to your textbook in a sort of introductory email. And lastly, again, in the live schedule, I'm told, I haven't seen it, but I'm told that you can provide a link even there already to the textbook, so that students, in addition to being able to see that it is a ZTC course, if they're so inclined, they could actually click through and see, well, like, what does this textbook even look like? How dense is it? How, accessible is it? Whatever it is that might help them, make that decision about taking.
And the
course.
admin secretaries are the one that can assist with putting content in the there's a narrative description in the live schedule that includes like real-time conferencing and that type of thing, but you can have it added to that text box.
And you've adopted OER previously, right? What has been your distribution method for student, getting the textbook to the students?
At time, all of the above,
All of them.
except for the URL listing in the live schedule. I was not aware that could happen. But I do send out an email
Great.
prior saying, make sure you can get in. This is what we're going to be using. Be ready to go. Make sure you can get into Canvas. In case this is your first class, make sure you can get your email. If you can see this, then you can get into Canvas.
Great.
Let me know if you need help, or first knows how you can get into stuff. I have it all over Canvas.
Yeah.
You can click anywhere and literally see, download your textbook by clicking here.
Okay. And have you used the course cartridges before?
Yes, I
Okay.
have. It seemed a little confusing for some students,
Interesting.
because it was as if they didn't realize that they could download the text themselves.
Okay.
And that seemed to handicap them in some way. It was strange. So I did it once. And I'm holding off to see if I need to do that again.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was a little confusing for them for whatever reason.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, and I guess I could see that in some way, and I can also imagine ways to kind of mitigate that confusion through some sort of signposting, as it were, within the Canvas shell,
Yeah.
like a little additional information, but, yeah,
But it was easy to do though.
yeah,
I mean,
that's the.
yeah, I didn't have to really do anything.
Yeah, use it
Download
as,
it.
is
Yeah.
it makes it where the book is in Canvas and they don't have to link out of it. So
Right.
that's
Right, so in
convenient.
each of my modules, there was the reading.
Exactly.
Right
Yeah.
there,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna look at that
Yeah,
in a second,
yeah.
so
So,
it'll be kind of a review for you, but hopefully not for other people who might
yeah.
see this.
I'm with you on it, maybe I'll figure out
as
how
well.
to fix my disconnect.
Yeah. So one sort of thing to think about, as an aside is in terms of a possible limitation, again, in the last workshop, you may recall, we talked about, Creative Commons licensing and the different flavors involved there, and one of them, is the non-derivative flavor. Which is to say that in such a case, you are essentially you're agreeing to give everything to the students, you don't get to kind of chop it up in any way, so. So it's a kind of an all or nothing proposition for that kind of text, if you see that license. But frankly, in those circumstances, it's pretty simple. All workaround is even if you don't expect expect your students to use the entire textbook, as it were, you're just going to be using sections of it. You provide that full link, and then you guide them to say, I want you to read this chapter, or that chapter, or section, however it happens to be organized. So, as an example, I found a textbook, and it is somewhere hidden behind this bar. I have a million of these now open.
oh, did you just click it a bunch of times?
Well, yeah, I clicked it a bunch of times, didn't realize
Oh.
it was in fact working.
Oh, good.
So here's one, it's it's on a platform called Pressbooks, which is another one of many OER platforms. And we can see the license here, and this equals sign is telling us that it's a non-derivative, right? So that's fine. I can, simply say, all right, I'm gonna grab the whole book, Control C at that URL, and then I'll tell my students, for this week, read types of tissues, section 2 of the book, up to unique epithelial issues, or something to that effect, right? And then presumably, or hopefully, that's clear enough to them, that they can do that. So that's a workaround for just if you happen to come across a textbook, an OER textbook with this non-derivative licensing.
So even though you could technically get a link to that chapter, that license is saying, don't piece this out.
Correct,
Only use pieces of it.
correct. So.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so. What I want to do now is an exercise with you in actually doing an integration of a textbook, embedding, using this course partridge method. And the easiest way to do this really is to have use a free Canvas account that's separate from your Citrus Canvas account. I don't know, do you have such an account
I
already?
do,
You do, great, so,
yeah.
for those of you following along at home, um, you can register for such an account. And this will be in the slides available to you later, but, let's get out of the presentation. At, instructure.com/try Canvas, you'll simply set up an account, and the account type that you're going to be asking for is a teacher account. And then it'll send you, your usual business about validating the account through the email that you used. And basically this canvas is not as full featured as what you would find with our citrus instance, but it's a good sandbox, I think, for kind of just understanding maybe your course design overall, and an opportunity to play around a little bit more. So I have such a site already, and I've already logged in to my site.
Does our current Canvas access give us the ability to import cartridges into our Citrus College Canvas instance?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's part of all canvases. All canvases everywhere, as far as I know. Actually, I shouldn't speak like that.
So why
because
would we
there's-
do it in the instructure one as opposed to this one?
Just because you might not have a sandbox course to play around with, right? So if you're, because it was my understanding, at least, if within your Canvas instance, your courses are defined by whatever you're teaching, and you don't get to add
We don't have a
willy-nilly
sandbox
courses.
built.
Yeah.
You could,
So you have to.
you
do
could
this to
potentially
capture.
request one
Okay.
from
Chom,
Chom,
yeah.
but you can also just,
But if you
Go.
take an app one course, they teach you how to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, which has been so helpful, and I'm glad I was told to do that early on.
yeah,
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it too. I was just thinking like that might be a common question.
yeah, yeah. So, before we go ahead and do this, so this is my very old Canvas side of that, but back into our presentation here. So what we're gonna do is we're going to download a course cartridge from a repository. In this case, we'll be using LibreText. Some repositories require you to sort of register first as an instructor before you would have access to something like the course cartridge. That's true, for example, with OpenStax. And that's fine, you can do it, you just have to know to do it a little bit in advance, right? Because they're going to check and make sure you are an instructor. Right? So that's the point of that. And then we're going to take that downloaded cartridge and we're going to import it into Canvas. Show you how to do that. There's a bit about selecting a question bank if that's actually part of the cartridge. In this case, it's not, so won't really be a big deal, but and then we're going to migrate all of the content and import it over to Canvas. So sounds weird when you just say it. It's easy when you do it. So let's go to a book. Here we are in LibreText in the statistics section. And what I have here is a textbook called Introductory Statistics. And in parentheses, it says OpenStax. What's that's telling me is that it actually originated in the OpenStax platform. But again, because it's open material, it can be republished in another platform. And some of the people using LibreText decided, I'd rather it be in LibreText because for whatever reason, you know, some of the affordances of LibreText are nicer than OpenStax, etc. And in this case, in fact, the author went ahead and modified it and added some multimedia and interactivity to the original text. And some videos. So let's assume that this was the text that we wanted to adopt for our class, for our course. All we need to do now is from this page is go to downloads and import into LMS. Now, again, that's what it'll say in LibreText. Other platforms might use different language, like, again, I talked about it, calling it a common cartridge. So you might see that as language, or it might say just import to Canvas. There are a few different ways it could be described. But hopefully they are intuitive enough to understand, oh, that's the thing I want to grab. So we're gonna go ahead and click this link. And it went ahead and downloaded LibreText .imscc to my downloads folder. So I have it. And now I'm going to go back to Canvas. And I'm going to start a course. And it's a free for teacher course, and it's called Introductory Statistics. We've created it. Okay, so now here's my class. Obviously, I would normally fill in all this kind of detail over here, but right now what we're interested in is importing the course content. And the content type is a common cartridge. Again, there's that word, common cartridge. Okay, so now I need to find the file that I just downloaded. There it is. Open it. Okay. Again, question bank. In this case, there isn't really one associated with but I have to say something. So intro to stats database. And here we're going to take all of the content. You could decide, oh, I only want some of the content, and then you have to pick and choose as you go through the import process. But for right now, we'll say we want it all. We're good with that. And then these two options we're going to ignore for right now. I don't, to be quite honest, even really understand what this one entirely means. But and adjust events and due dates just has to do with how things get structured. If there happen to be already events and due dates embedded in the cartridge, they're not in this case, so it doesn't really matter. So main thing though, the easiness of this, we're clicking the import button. You can see that it is running, giving us a little progress bar. Yada yada, magic happening now. That was the magic completed. Okay, so what happened? We go home and suddenly we have all of the things. The full textbook is there as separate modules, each chapter sort of parsed out and ready for your students to be able to see, right? So I go into something like this, 1.4, and we can see it's just taken and embedded it from LibreText directly into Canvas, right? And so your students can read it right in there. And as I mentioned, this particular author went ahead and added some interactivity, right? So we can see down here, they've even built in like, oh, here's a little exercise that the students can do directly within the textbook itself, in fact, right? Or in another area, they've done videos in lots of places. So a YouTube video is also then directly embedded and ready to watch. So they don't ever have to leave Canvas to have access to their site. Now, you suggested earlier, this could lead to some confusion, right?
It did.
It did. And I think one of the possibilities there is that there's the kind of scroll within scroll section here, right? So to get through the content, there's actually a different scroll bar than the one over on the far right. That's certainly one possibility that I could imagine. But if you wanted to kind of mitigate any problems, I think one of the things or confusions is that students might have is you could potentially do something early on in your course, you know, in an earlier module at the top, how to use this book, right? How to navigate this Canvas site or something like that. That kind of explains maybe some of those peculiarities, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's just one thought I have. I'm not an instructional designer in that sense, but some of the things that I've sort of picked up while I'm doing those kinds of things. But the other point is simply that now it's in your book or in your Canvas, and you can move things around as you see fit, right? Or go ahead and delete things if you wanted to. If you didn't need to use a certain section, you don't want to, you know, or add content in at certain points to provide additional context to whatever the textbook is saying. Right.
Can you edit any of that content when you're in this format, or
No,
that's something separate that you might be able to do in LibreText?
correct.
And then bring it in.
This is with the assumption that you are happy with this offering of the OER as is. In essence, you're taking it, you're not intending to modify it. That doesn't mean you can't contextualize it elsewhere within Canvas, but the text itself here is it still actually lives in this LibreText site, right? And so in order to so it can't really be altered within your own Canvas site. You would have to kind of take it and remix it within LibreText and provide your own version. But that's what we're going to get to in the next workshop. So any questions about that process? I hope that's helpful. PDF, we did say again that you should grab that PDF, right? So we grabbed the cartridge from here, and we can also grab the full PDF right there. And it's big. But this would be the PDF, for example, that you could then download provide to the bookstore, but also upload to Canvas itself as well, right? So this is giving your students options of different ways to access the text.
Because sometimes they may not want to use internet to read something, so they could download it and then not be on internet and have
Right.
access to it, yeah.
Good point. Okay. So. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, as we wrap up, is again, using ancillary material that you find for the books. We know, for example, that some OER will come with PowerPoints that you can use, right? And you can simply download them again, and then they're available for you to either use as a PowerPoint when you're presenting live, or provide again within Canvas. Most people probably are not going to take the PowerPoints simply as is, but rather do modifications to suit the needs of their course, their objectives, their teaching style, etc. But another interesting kind of set of ancillary material that you can find and make use of for assessment and homework activities. And two that I want to talk about, which are sort of probably at the forefront and kind of just about there for full integration, if you will, with Canvas, but not quite, are the LibreText Adapt and also H5P, which is a platform, an open source platform for building multimedia and interactive exercises. So LibreText Adapt is part of the whole Libra verse, if you will, along with the LibreText books. One of the things about LibreText Adapt is that this platform actually has the capability of using content or exercises that are created from other kinds of platforms like H5P, but also MyOpenMath, which was a popular platform for obviously for math and statistics. Another platform called WebWork. And then it also has a few of its own native exercise types. And one of the neat things, particularly about those native exercise types, that is different, say, from H5P and MyOpenMath, is accessibility. Which is to say that the native exercises within the Adapt platform are they're always accessible. So they meet stringent accessibility criteria because that was baked into the design process of the platform. And that's not true with all of the different kinds of activities or exercises available through H5P or MyOpenMath. So to have access to LibreText Adapt, you will need to register again for something like that through a Libre One account. Here's Libre One. If I log out here for a second. Back to it. Oh, well, so in any case, when you go to one.libretext.org for the first time, you can register for a Libre One account. That's now kind of their portal to get you into all of the Libreverse. So adapt, commons, conductor, studio for creating H5P context, and all of the different actual texts themselves. So within there, if we go to adapt, we can see, of course, I'm gonna get a call, because I never ever receive calls, except for when I'm doing a presentation. You go to, you can see I'm registered, it knows that I'm there, and I have a dashboard, and I've created already a course, and I have my introductory statistics course with a bunch of questions that are that I just imported. I didn't create any of these, right? So it's kind of nice, and I can search for other ones that I might want. If I go to, say, public courses,
So these bring up materials that are in the catalog that also, that happen to have activities associated with them.
yeah,
That happen to have adapt activities specifically.
That's correct.
therefore-
no, these could be, again, adapt will use different types of questions, whatever ones, you know, they could be H5P, they could be web work, or they could be native.
I see.
I'll show you in a second something, but so these are courses. So let's say, let's just see if there's any business courses in here. Right, okay, so we have communication for business success, right? So there's a,
Yeah, yeah.
so in here, I can see, there's a bunch of, you know, sections with lots of questions, and you can begin to review that, see what they look like. And, you know, if you like it, you would end up saying, okay, I want to add, I want to import this course for my own set, right? And then I can use these questions essentially in my course as well. And then ultimately, you're going to be able to then link to this into your Canvas shell. And so when students go in and they into Canvas and they click on the activities, it'll take them out to adapt, and they'll do the activities in adapt, but it has them, any of the grading gets passed back to your Canvas grade. Yeah, so so that's kind of a nice feature.
Is it per like activity? There's a link or something? Is that what they?
No, it's actually per course, but you decide
Oh, then you
kind of,
use it.
you get to decide like which activities, etc., right? So you can take the whole course, but that doesn't mean you have to use all of the activities, right? So you can be particular, or you can create things and say, oh, let's see where it is. Yeah, you can say, I really like this one, you know, and just create a set of favorites and just use those in your own course. But if we go to searching questions, you can see here, you can search by technology, right? So if you wanted to just say, well, just show me the ones that are done natively in adapt, so that we know they're going to meet those accessibility criteria. No questions. Okay, so that's not being done yet. But I'll bet you there's a bunch of them in H5P. Yep, well, 87. So. In business writing, etc. That also assumes that people added tags, which they may or may not have, so. The sort of search by question itself is a little iffy, if you ask me. So, at least with my initial kind of playing around with it.
Can I ask a question?
Of course,
So is that saying that that person, Arlie Crothers, actually developed this in the HP5?
Yeah.
And the type is drag the words, true, false?
That's
whatever? Okay.
yeah, this is, there are multiple types of H5P questions, right? So, and indeed, I think if I recall correctly, something like drag and drop is not accessible. And that's one of the issues, right? It's like, it's kind of fun. But kind of not if you're not, if you can't do it.
I think in terms of
You have a
accessibility,
disability.
everything has to be able to be done with a keyboard. and
Right.
That type of thing needs a mouse, or
Right.
needs a, like modality, like motor skill
Right.
movement wise. That wouldn't be accessible.
So these are just sort of the things that go along with all of this fun stuff, but yeah. Okay. But as you can see, there's a fair amount already there, and so the idea is like, feel free to make use of and reuse this content for your courses. And then as you get confident with that, and if you have the time and the ability, you can also then start to contribute new stuff. But that's for another workshop. Let's see. So, and similarly with H5P, it's something, right now we have a trial going on essentially, but I wasn't able to get it. I was able to sign up for the trial. It's like 30-day free trial. But I wasn't able to like connect it to Canvas, but my understanding is that once that's set up, well, my understanding is we are in a essence going to have this in Canvas soon, such that under the exercises, when you're creating exercises in Canvas, you can natively create an H5P exercise without having to leave Canvas itself.
That would be cool.
So,
Summer or fall implementation, I think.
Fall,
What's
I thought,
being
yeah.
discussed, yeah,
Yeah.
more fall.
so. Yeah, and then just as long as folks are aware of the accessibility issues and choose the right exercises to use, then that'll be a great thing as well.
It just keeps things more interesting for students.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Engagement, really.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's only so many, questions, multiple choice questions.
Yeah.
Before you fall asleep, it's like, I need some interaction. What's
Yeah.
happening here?
So. Okay. I'm not gonna show this video because it doesn't really show much. Other than the process of, what it will eventually look like for us when we're able to adapt to Canvas. There are just some codes that you'll have to copy from Canvas. I mean, from adapting to Canvas, to make the link, but it's not rocket science. So.
Good.
And of course, we've talked a lot about accessibility today. And that's just a reminder that Sarah and Trevor are continuing a series on accessibility, a workshop series. So there are more coming up, And if you're interested and can attend, then please do. And a reminder, of course, that we encourage folks to take the OER courses that are available, including like the OER accessibility basics, the safe self-paced course on that topic, and receive the $500 stipend through the ZTC grant. We're doing. So. Any other questions? So. Cool. Well, and there, the promised canine.
Yes.
The promised pup.
Yeah.
I missed my alliteration. on-
Yeah, promise Piper.
Promised Piper the pup.
My little 3-year-old labman.
Oh, so cute.
Yeah, in terms of the accessibility workshops, they're offered here in LA 118, but also we're recording them and they'll be available on our accessibility sort of series webpage with the recordings too. So we have those because we know not everybody can make it, although they've been packed.
Really?
40 people, yeah.
Wow.
So they're all been full and few people online. So yeah, it's really good because the campus is wanting to make by July 1st, every communication that we have through email or, flyers and things that are on the website all have to be accessible. So everyone's, minutes for meetings and things like that. So yeah, that's required a larger effort on.
Awesome.
But yeah, that is all I wanted to share.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Thank you again.